Welcome to the hottest real estate topics on the planet, keeping you up to date with all the creative ways to buy and sell real estate without bank qualifying, so anyone can build real income starting today. Here is another great show with Dealmaker Bill and Pete the Rookie.
All right, here we are at another episode of Flipping Houses for Rookies.
Flip those houses.
Yeah, it was a little bit of a delay there. I was wondering if it was even going to turn on. I was waiting for the live button to go, and I didn't see it, I'm like, uh-oh.
I had to go to the cell, to the satellite, to the other satellite, to the Tesla satellite, to the space station, and then back down to Wallingford.
Peter's got it figured out. Episode number 251, Peter, 251. The name of...
Wait a minute. We forgot to have a celebration for 250.
Oh, I didn't forget. I deliberately ignored it.
Saturday. No, I invited you. Saturday. We're doing something.
Yeah,
Saturday.
We got plans already. We'll talk about that later.
Okay.
But maybe Sunday. All right. Today's episode's title is New Discovery. Uh-oh.
New discovery.
The Jekyll and Hyde effect kills creative real estate investors revealed. Wow. And just to let the cat out of the bag, Peter, this is a two-part series, so it's going to be episode number 251 and 252.
Okay.
Now listen to what I have to say about this episode. Now, don't take this as any hype. This is just Bill's planet, Bill's heart, just talking to you and the other rookies and listeners. Okay? This is just raw thought. Okay?
Bill, I expect nothing less and nothing else.
All right. This one essential podcast could possibly get you more than you ever wanted from creative real estate than any other thing known to mankind. Wow. In fact,
starting off big.
In fact, I would dare to say, if you are not equipped with what you are about to uncover today, I spelt that wrong. I'm sorry. I'm going to do that again. So I put about to cover today. It's not what you're supposed to cover today. So let me back up. In fact, I would dare to say if you are not equipped with what we are about to uncover today, your traction for success will inevitably be lengthened by a large, large margin. By crystallizing very clearly what we are about to cover, you will definitely maximize your potential and achieve everything you want, Peter, from your real estate activity. In fact, I would go as much to say it will improve any business who will apply it. So it's not just real estate.
Business. Wow,
it's not just real estate, okay?
This must be basic.
This is like good stuff, okay?
Groundbreaking.
The new discovery boils down to the two key roles that makes things happen. But these two key roles are completely different from one another. And most investors don't know this internal battle is going on. And because of this are doing things backwards. How do I know that? Plus, until you are like Disney, Henry Ford, and Ray Croc with McDonald's, until you know this, you will stay small and struggle until you have this breakthrough with this invisible barrier. So let's talk about this journey together so we can discover what you will prefer to embrace during this podcast for your success. Okay, so now realize it's a two-part series. I want to disclose that. Okay?
Yeah.
So before I do that, I want to do my housekeeping thing. Episode 250 was a cataclysmic point in our podcast series because of my inquisitiveness. In other words, I'm always curious, and I'm always looking, and I'm always like investigating, because that's just, I guess, my personality, or whatever you want to call it. It has been brought to my attention that most don't listen to a 90-minute podcast. So I'm spending all this time writing these podcasts, hours a week, and research, and they're not even listening. So we're trimming the podcast back down, somewhere in the 45-minute range. We will eventually get to a half an hour, but we're going to try to stay in that 45-minute range and see what happens. But I feel bad because there are some people that enjoy the longer podcast. Not everybody's like that. Mm-hmm. So I don't want the majority to rule. So here's what we've done. Here's what I've done. The link that's in your description used to be a link to all our free stuff. Well, we've had it there for quite a while, and if you go back in past episodes, you could get that link and you can go to the free stuff, or you can go to flippinghousesforrookies.com/free stuff, or just go to Flipping Houses for Rookies, and on the top right-hand side, there's a link for free stuff. It's not taken away from you. It's just not in the podcast. So what I've decided is to start giving away, which I do this, but only on certain occasions, a 45-minute free consultation for anybody that wants to talk to me directly about their real estate career. And it's not a sell fest. I'm not looking to sell you anything. I mean, there are times where people get on this call with me and they ask about courses and they ask about coaching. I'm willing to talk about whatever you want to talk about, as long as it's real estate. I don't want to hear about your family and your kids and your money problems and all that drama. I don't do that well. I do that for my little sister and my daughter, and that's about it. I got enough. I don't want any more. Okay? So my capacity's been hit. So you're not getting in on that program. So in the link in the chat, it's changed. What you will have to do is you will have to pay me to do this free 45-minute consult. And the payment is I got some survey questions. So you answer some of the questions. I think there's a handful of questions. You answer the questions, and when you hit the submit button, you'll get my schedule and get right on my schedule and get a free interview with me. Okay? So just go into the chat. Not into the chat. Go into the description of wherever you're listening to this podcast, and it's there. Plus, every Thursday morning, 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, we record this podcast and we live stream it onto Facebook and onto YouTube. So if you want to be with us live and ask questions, then go to YouTube or Facebook, 9:30 or so, 9:15, 9:30 on a Thursday morning. In fact, if you're on Facebook and you subscribe to our page, or on YouTube and subscribe to our page, when we actually go live, it pops up and tells you we're going live. Okay? So go ahead and do that. And of course, subscribe. So if you're in YouTube, subscribe. If you're in Facebook, subscribe. Okay? So here we go. Good morning, Rick. Rick from Australia is in the room.
Man, Australia.
Yeah, he's a far away, but he's amazing. He's on all this stuff, all my trainings. All right. The Jekyll and Hyde effect. This Scottish author, whose name was Robert Louis Stevenson, first published this novel in 1886. Stevenson had long been intrigued by the idea of how human personalities could reflect and interplay the good and the evil. After writing multiple short stories, Stevenson racked his brains for a story that he could reflect the good and evil from all human beings. And one morning, he woke up and had an intuition for 2 or 3 scenes that would later appear in the story Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. In today's language, the phrase Jekyll and Hyde refers to a person's unpredictable dual nature. mostly good, but sometimes it's shockingly evil. Which brings us to today's podcast. Got that out.
Ew.
Are creative real estate investors who struggle each and every day if he or she is doing the right thing or the wrong thing.
Mm.
And it's an intuition, right? So let me give you my rendition of what this Jekyll and Hyde syndrome is in the real estate of investing arena. Okay? So
Yeah.
It's like the good and the evil. That's what we're talking about, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like a comic book, Peter. Okay?
Oh.
And by the
Welcome
way,
to
we're
my
not
world.
picking who's the good guy and who's the bad guy, okay? Who's the villain and who's the hero. We're not going to do that before you ask, okay?
I'm not going near that one.
Perfect. So we're also going to cover why these are familiar with. Let me back up because it's easier if I just read what I wrote. Okay, so let me give you my rendition of what this Jekyll and Hyde syndrome is in the real estate investing arena, and why these familiar but strange occurrences tend to run rampant in the creative real estate world. Because I have to tell you something, Peter.
Well,
When you, I forgot to put my headphones on. When you tell me things, or when some people tell me things, right?
mm-hmm.
I look at them like, why the hell are they doing that? Right? It's like a weird phenomenon to me. Right? So I'm wondering, why the hell is he doing that? And these are the weird occurrences that I'm talking about. So when you don't know, you do things because you don't know. It's kind of like, you throw a pebble in the pond, and there's what they call the ripple effect. In other words, what happens to that ripple when it hits the other side of the water, the other side of the lake, and you don't see it? Like, how does that happen, right? So that's the ripple effect,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
All right. So let me get down to business here. Let's look at the two roles that are vital in any business. These two roles, and I'm telling you, I've been in business for almost 40 years, 35 to 40 years. Mm-hmm. And I can't say that, good morning, John. He said, good morning, rookies. So, I can tell you that I never really clarified this as much as I'm going to clarify it today, but I will tell you that I have a new partnership, and I've recently read some new books, and I realized this is what's happening, and it's given me a lot of clarity. So I'm learning just as much as you guys are. The difference is I have I've got 20 years worth of experience to pull off of to actually measure these datums against where some of you guys might have that. You might have been in business for a long time in a different business, but I'm talking about specific to real estate. Okay. So
Right.
Here are the two roles that I speaketh of. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
One is a strategist. Two is a tactician.
Mm-hmm.
So by definition, a strategist is a person that's skilled in planning action and policy, especially in war or politics. So a strategist is a person that's skilled in planning action or policy, especially in war or politics. Now, just for the record, my definition of policy is standard operating procedures that become the law. They're like what has occurred in the past that created the desired result that is now the law or now the rule, right? Because it has been proven to be correct and actually get the organization or the person or the thing to the desired result that is wanted and needed. Okay, so policy is that. So the statistician, the strategist is planning these actions in the policy. So they're like, I'm going to go over this in a minute, but they're thinking in the future. Okay. Then the tactician, by definition, is someone who is skilled at the procedure, getting the results, or arrangement of action for a specific result. So they're like hands-on. They're front lines, right? So, okay, before we go much further here, I would like to point out a strategist is an outward thinker. A tactician is an inward thinker. They tend to be introverted. Strategists tend to be extroverted. There's not a good and a bad here. It's just how they think. Okay?
Yeah.
So the strategist looks in the future, and the tactician usually looks in present time or the past very often. So usually, minimally, the tactician is in present time. So just like I'm talking about that pebble you throw in the pond, they're not thinking about how is that ripple going to affect the other side of the shore, on the other side of the lake. They're just worried about what they're doing right now, and they're trying to get it off their plate, and that's it. They're not looking at the ramifications. And when you're in an organization and you have something flowing, like a communication flowing through an organization, if you don't know where that communication's coming from or going to, and you're just in present time, just dealing with it your way, you could do a lot of damage.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. I see that. I've actually been in businesses with a lot of other people, and everyone has their job. And it's like a flow. One thing goes to the next, and the next, and the next. You know, a car factory. It starts at one end, and it ends up at the other end, and there's a car. But boy, if you don't have a coordinator who does what when, you could come up with a pretty good jalopy.
So I'm going to make a very loud, profound statement here. If tacticians are running an organization, you will notice that the organization is made up of a bunch of individuals. They're doing their thing, they don't care about anybody else, and there's no group.
Yeah.
A strategist will run a group, a team that works together. They have what we call elastic team tactics. In other words, if the guy's not at the front register to collect the money, somebody else walking by, another employee can do that for him temporarily, and then give the cash register guy their hat back and say, hey, you know, I collected $50 from John Smith, and here's where I put the money, and then they're out of it, right?
Yep.
So a team is aware of where the communication of the product or the raw materials are coming from and where they're going to around them. Okay, so a strategist is more like the whole picture, right? And a tactician is more like, well, their job is the most important job, and they're all stuck on like all the details and all the nitty-gritty, and it's just about them often. And this is not a derogatory thing, by the way. This is just how they think, okay? And next week in episode 252, I'm gonna put my money where my mouth is. We don't have time to do it today because of the length of the podcast. But I promise you, if there's any podcast, if this interests you, if there's any podcast to listen to, it's 252, because I am not only going to list the characteristics, but you're going to look at them, and you're going to know which one you are by the category that you put yourself in. Like, that's me, that's me, that's me, that's me. No, that's not me, that's not me, that's not me. So you'll know exactly where you are. Okay?
It sounds like the way you're describing this, it's not very likely that one person can easily do both of those. So if you knew which one you were, you would be well put to find a partner that can do the other bit.
And we are going to talk about that next week and why that's so important. Why, if you're running solely by yourself, it's not working. Why you're fighting with yourself because you're trying to do strategist and tactician stuff, and you don't have a split personality. You're either one or the other.
Yeah, it's hard to do both.
Yeah.
Even if you could do both, how would you manage to juggle all that?
You can't.
Keep switching. It'd be rough. The way you're describing this sounds a little bit like a super coach in a team.
Yeah.
Like some of the greatest coaches that sports have ever had.
It's a great
and
analogy.
the team members that, one guy punts really good, one guy, throws good, one guy catches good, but that's what they do best. But you got a coach overseeing everything. It
got to orchestrate.
kind of reminds me of that.
Yeah, you got to orchestrate.
Yeah.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
Okay, so a strategist and a tactician, almost as if the strategist walks with his head up and the tactician walks with his head down. That's what it's kind of like, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Now watch this. This is the point of today's podcast. Okay? This is as far as I'm concerned, I'm going to pat myself on the back for this one because I'm proud that I even observed this. And I don't even know how it happened. I'm not even sure when I had this. It was like baked for hours or days in my mind. And all of a sudden, it came out when I started writing about it.
Right. That makes sense.
Here we go. So most businesses, and which, by the way, I'm not trying to sound like I'm smart or anything like that. I'm just sharing my experience. It's just like raw thought here. It's not like I'm trying to brag about how I did this or anything. I'm just telling you how I came to this conclusion, right?
Yeah.
Most businesses are started by a tactician who is really good at their craft. Right? They really know their stuff, which, by the way, they got by working for somebody else. They got their practice and their skill and their ability from making all the mistakes under somebody else's buck.
Yep.
Somebody else paid for it, right? But we're not talking about that. Then one day, this tactician decides his boss is making too much money off of him or her, or off of their skill, and decides to go out on his own. Air quotes, go out on his own.
Yeah.
Okay? Once he takes this leap of faith, he's going from the tactician pond into the strategist pond. And the struggle begins, which often ends up with not enough hours in the day, and the tactician always cleaning up the mess and having trouble finding good help. These guys are the guys that complain about, how bad the human pool for help is, the gene for help. Nobody works like they do. They're the best worker. They're animals. They work 20 hours a day, right? How do I know this? Okay, they work 20 hours a day to do everything because nobody can do it like them.
Yeah, sounds like my mechanics a few years ago. They expanded their 3-bay to 8 bays, and they never filled them.
Yeah.
Never. Yeah, we can't find good guys. Well, why don't you train them? Why don't you make them? We can't find them. They're not there. And you got 3 bays and a bunch of storage still to this day.
Right.
They couldn't find them.
So my belief is that the only reason why an employee leaves a business, now I'm not talking about blowing. I'm not talking about they're there on Tuesday, they leave on Wednesday.
Yeah, they quit in a big huff. I hate this place.
That's because they're doing something wrong and they don't want to get caught. That's the reason why they do that. So if somebody quits instantaneously, go dig into their job and find out what transgression have they been doing that you don't know about. Because there's one there or there's many there. Okay?
Yeah, while they're blaming the company, the boss, and the other guys for everything.
Being critical of everybody else, which, by the way, is criticalness. Criticalness is the saying, they always say, people accuse those of what they themselves are doing. So if somebody's being critical of you for eating apples, then you need to go look at when they ate apples and they were doing something wrong. Okay?
Yeah, they stole the apple in the first place.
There you go. Exactly. Okay, so, but what I'm talking about is like somebody gives a 2-week notice or a month notice and, that kind of stuff. The only reason, and this is proven by statistic, the number one reason is because they don't agree with management.
Yeah.
So when you have a place like your auto repair shop and they have new help all the time, that tells me that the business is run by a tactician.
Right.
They're not. It's not run by a strategist. There's not.
Doesn't have that skill set to be the boss.
There's
It's
no
totally
systems.
different.
There's no flow. There's no step 1, step 2, step 3. Okay. There's none of that. Okay. And it's a bunch of individuals working together, right? To give you an example of what I'm talking about, which I'm off topic here, but suppose I had 10 painters and I put them in a room and I said, paint the room. What's going to happen?
Yeah,
Chaos.
Yeah,
right?
who's gonna sand? Who's gonna fill the holes? Who's gonna cut edge? Who's gonna roll?
Right. But if I stand in that room and I say, Joe, you do this, Frank, you do that, Al, you do this, John, you do that, whatever, and then everybody's orchestrated, that's the purpose of management.
Yep.
Okay. So, but we're not here to talk about management because most people are solopreneurs. They're in real estate. They're doing it themselves, which is the point that I want to make here because I've done it both ways and I've learned, with my new partner, Sean, I've learned a lot from this. And that's why I'm sharing this because all of a sudden my business is taking off again and I'm wondering why. And this is the reason why. Okay. In fact, I'm going to cover it next week in episode 252 to the T. I'm going to give you analogies, and I'm going to show you exactly why this works. Okay, today I just want to cover the theory. Okay, so that's what a normal business does. The tactician is really good at what they do. They have the procedures. They know what's going on. They know more than anybody else in the company often. They're the best salesman. They're the best, air conditioning guy. They're the best auto mechanic. They're the best, computer guy, the best technician, whatever it may be. They go out on their own, and then once they go on their own, they don't realize that they have to have a strategic plan.
Yeah.
They need to have a strategist that think in the future. Okay. Now watch
They're not
this.
aware of it. I mean, they're thinking, boy, that boss doesn't know what he's doing, right? A lot of the times,
Right.
They don't know how hard I work and that whole deal. And they don't realize
they don't know all the details.
they don't know, and all the work behind the scenes and the planning that goes into effects, all that stuff.
And the truth is, with those guys, when they're being critical, just like what we were talking about, the truth is they don't know what the boss is doing, what you just said. They don't know all the planning and the strategic and all the payroll and, all the things, the taxes and, insurance and buying trucks and equipment and, like where everybody's going to work next week or the week after. They don't know any of that stuff. So they don't know what they don't know, right?
Sure.
Here's my bragging rights. This is my claim to fame. Watch this. You ready?
Uh-huh.
In the real estate industry, this is completely backwards.
Jesus. It's hard enough as it is. What do you mean?
We tend to get sold on the strategy and don't know shit about the tactics needed. So we start our business based on the strategy. We're not the tactician starting a business and we already have familiarity and we already know what we're doing. It's backwards.
You're right. You go to a seminar.
Yeah.
Some famous person shows up. They
Yeah.
tell you they're selling the dream.
Yeah.
It's a little bit like in my musical world. It's like going to America's Got Talent or The Voice or any of those shows, and you want to start off at the top,
Right.
But a lot of people don't have the basic skills in the first place.
Yeah.
But they're sold on the dream. Look what we can accomplish.
Exactly.
Which makes a nice commercial.
Exactly.
But it's not a very good course.
Exactly.
Wow.
Or even worse, if we know some of the tactics, like we've heard of a lease option, or we've heard of a subject to, or we've heard of a rehab. That's the biggest thing, a rehab, because we watched it on one of the cable TV shows, right? Mm-hmm. We don't know how to put everything in order, the strategy, so they work together as a whole. Nobody's teaching that.
No, I remember people coming to especially some of our first meetings, and one guy goes, "Oh, I want to do wholesale."
Yeah.
Oh, like it's up to you.
Right.
Why? Because you don't have any money and you want free money out of the sky. Like, I want to do this. Good. Like, it's up to you to decide what they're going to let you do with the house. Like,
and if you don't understand
whatever you want.
And if you don't understand what Peter's saying is, what he means is it's up to the seller on what kind of transaction they're going to accept. It's not up to you. So yeah, you might do wholesaling, but they may not want to take 60 cents on a dollar.
You're going, hot dogs, and they don't want to buy hot dogs. Too bad.
See, it's a weird phenomenon that nobody talks about. Now, here are some of the things that happen when doing the process out of order, or not having the two work together, a strategist and a tactician. Here are some of the phenomenons. You ready?
Ready.
This is going to be very enlightening.
It's like looking in a mirror.
For some people, yeah. So if this what I'm talking about, where you jumped in and you're doing the strategy and you're not a tactician, or there's not a strategist and a tactician working together, okay, or any of the above that we just talked about. These are some of the physical manifestations and the phenomenons that will happen if this is going on. So if I list something here and it's happening to you, then this Jekyll and Hyde syndrome is going on in your life and you don't even know it. Okay? Here we go. Analysis of paralysis, top of the list.
Well, we've heard that a lot. How's that fit in with these two things?
So they're employing the strategist thought, and they're trying to learn how to be a tactician.
So they know what they want to do, but they can't figure out how to do it tactically, specifically, details. So they stare at it and then freeze.
No, you're almost right.
Yeah.
They know what they want to do, but they don't know how it really works because they've never seen it.
Yeah, that's what I mean, like the details.
So they know what they want to do. They have this dream that they were sold. They want to make $30,000 a month, or they want to do one house a month or 6 houses a year, right? But they don't know what's involved. So they have this picture of what they want to do without knowing the tactical points to do that. And then they have this fake picture or false pretense of a picture or an idea or a strategy, and then they try to go match a tactical point to it, and it doesn't align because the original picture is not what an ideal scene looks like. It's their mocked up or made up ideal scene.
Yeah.
It's not real. It's pretend. It's not possible, and they don't even know that.
Nope.
So that's analysis of paralysis. They're trying to align two datums that they imagined. Now, there could be some points of it that are close, but that's the reason why it never really resolves in their mind. Because it's a lie and a lie. And they're trying to line them up to make it work for them. And they're trying to get all the data to match this ideal scene that they're trying to get, where the ideal scene is not even real to begin with.
Yeah.
You know? It's kind of like this. And I have a lot more to cover here, so we need to keep moving. So it's kind of like this. I tell my wife, television, and you've heard me say this before, television is entertainment. It has actresses and actors that are fed lines, known as scripts, prior to them talking. And as you know, because we recorded a show, you and Jesse recorded a show on how to flip a house, right? There is hours and days and weeks worth of film that is edited down so you get the exact right scene at the exact right time. So that means the actor is pretending to align his or her emotions up with the words that need to be communicated. They record a lot until he actually gets it right, and then they edit it and put it together. It's all make-believe. It's all pretend. Yet our society relies on TV or the internet as a reliable source for information. Even the newscaster is reading a teleprompter. Even the President of the United States is reading a teleprompter.
Mm-hmm.
It's mocked up.
Yeah.
So our society believes in these reality TV shows that it could be this way and here's how you could do it, and you take that as a strategy that was made up and pretend to begin with, and then you go off and decide you're going to try to figure out how to do it, and you start doing tactician stuff, and you're trying to line up all this data to align with this pretend goal. Pretend goal. Right? Analysis of paralysis.
Juicy.
Here's another one. Long runways to success. I hear that a lot. I've been doing this for 2 years. I haven't bought a deal yet. Frustration from the lack of experience. You're forcing yourself to have experience or forcing yourself to believe you have experience. And I just would like to make a footnote on that, okay? I had this conversation with one of my buddies at the cigar shop last night. That one of the things that I have innately, which I didn't know I have, is the ability to, I like to, when I'm talking to people, I like to give them the option of thinking. Give them a different angle on something, if I know it. You know, if I don't know it, then, and then
Right.
when I'm listening to somebody, I like to have the option of thinking myself.
Yeah.
Right? So what I recently realized is people will read books, believe they have the theory, be gullible enough to think that because that one person that wrote it, which by the way was edited, okay, and it's their interpretation of what happened, it may not even be what happened, right? And this person has the theory and believes they have knowledge. No, the true knowledge comes in the experience of applying that information. So you hear people yakking away about how they know how to do this and how they know how to do that. How do you know they didn't just read a book and duplicate it real well and just give it back to you? If you want to test this, just when somebody's doing that, ask them, give me an example of when you've done that. Right? And I'm going through this with some of my coaching clients.
Yeah.
With my partner, I'm going through this. Like, but it goes the other way too, because I'll say to him, well, this is my experience and I'm trumping you because of my experience. I have to be careful of that because maybe my experience was incorrect and I did it wrong, and I'm steadfast on that. So there's a balance between the theory and the experience and the results. So it's a triangle. There's experience, there's theory, experience, and results.
Well, if you only rely on experience, how would you ever get anything new applied also? No? Right? I mean, at some point, you have to try something new once in a while, or just test it at least, see if it can be better, or else you'll never get better.
To your point, and we're way off topic here, but to your point, Peter, here's the thing. The thing is that if I had to learn how to fix a car, and say it took me 50 years to be a good mechanic because it took me 50 years to run into all the types of situations that the car would break from, all the different types of, syndromes and how to fix it, right? It would take me a lifetime or lifetimes to be good at that. Where if I read a book and I get somebody else's opinion or somebody else's experience, it shortens my runway on observation. Because now I can say, oh, this guy did that, I should go try that on my own. And it initiates some new thought. So here's what happens. I think Nightingale said this a long time ago. Like, once you stretch a person's mind by getting them to think differently, it can never shrink back to its original state.
Ah, I like that.
Right?
Who's Nightingale?
Earl Nightingale?
Earl Nightingale?
Yeah. So
I haven't run across him yet. Earl Nightingale. Okay.
yeah, he's a old in the 50s. He's like a Tony Robbins guy.
Yeah.
Anyways, let's keep moving.
I like that.
We got to move on, right? So,
Yep.
frustration from lack of experience, thinking you know it when really you only know the untested theory, which is what I was just talking about. Thinking you know it when you really only know the untested theory. So, theory is only as good as the application and the results. As I said, it's like a triangle. So you got to have theory, you have to have experience, and then the results.
Yep.
And then when you have the desired results, you then have knowledge. It's a three-pronged thing for me, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Rick is saying knowledge is external wisdom within.
Like, knowledge is external, wisdom is within.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep.
All right, good. So here's another one. Being mocked by those around you.
Oh.
So I got to tell you something, and I'm not going to name names because they're family members. There are people in my life that are very close to me that when they say that I'm crazy and I shouldn't do it, I pour the coals on, man. I jam the gas pedal not only down to the floorboards but through the radiator. When the herd says no, this is a Dan Kennedy thing. When the herd says no, do the opposite. If you do the opposite of what the herd says, you will be successful every time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? How about this one? More money going out than coming in.
Yeah.
You're not getting results. How about this one? Here's another one.
Mm-hmm.
Overtrain yourself to a deficit.
Oh. That's like the perpetual college student.
Yeah. We have a lot of that in real estate.
Mm-hmm.
They have
Studying.
they study
Another course.
Yeah. They
Another book.
overtrain themselves to a deficit. All they do is watch videos and listen to our podcast and read books and study to a deficit. Because then when something happens, they got too much information and they can't nail that piece of information down to a situation. And then the situation comes and they forget to apply it. Because they got too much information. Yeah. It's like a sea of water and the stable datum or the main piece of information is a drop and you put it in the sea and it just disappears. Doesn't know where to go. Okay? Getting misdirected with shiny objects because you don't know the bullseye. Okay? Lack of dedication. This one's huge. Lack of dedication to one mentor or system and jump too quick at lack of results. Lack of dedication to one mentor or system and jump too quick at lack of results.
I've seen a lot of different things come and go. Sell vitamins, sell this, pyramid, all kinds of things. And I'm sure any one of them could work and has worked if you make it work.
Yep.
And I'm sure any one of them can fail if you let it fail.
Exactly.
So it's like the system doesn't do it, you do it.
Yep.
You have to make it work.
Yep.
I know people who buy really expensive like musical equipment. Son of a gun, it doesn't play itself.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
have to make it work. Well,
unfortunately, in this case, and we could go off on a whole podcast on this, but I want to end off in a couple minutes here. So, Unfortunately, what happens is when the system doesn't work, you automatically think it's the other guy, not you.
Yeah.
Now, let's take a look at the definition of blame. Peter, I didn't buy that house because you did blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. So really what I just said is I parked you at cause, me at effect.
Yeah.
Instead of you being cause. Instead of me being cause. So if I say, Peter, you did this and it caused me to be that.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So when you study a course or don't follow the system correctly and say that this guy doesn't know what he's talking about, you're parking cause at the blame point. You're blaming the other person for your inabilities or lack of concentration or your ability to comprehend the theory and apply it. You're putting them at cause, you're at effect.
Mm-hmm.
Now this, I want to tell you that, Peter, I'm going to read this and we're going to move right on, because I promise you, I will do a 3-hour seminar right now without a script on this one sentence. One sentence. But I will tell you that this is my passion in life.
Okay.
In real estate.
Yeah.
Not in life, in
Yeah.
real estate, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Here we go. Stress from no one place to learn standard operating procedures that are tested and proven in real estate. See, the realtors are realtors and have an organization because they have standard operating procedures and they have policies on what to do and not to do. The policies are like the velvet rope to keep them in line, and the standard operating procedures are what they use to train everybody with. So everybody is standard. That's like if you go in and buy a McDonald's hamburger in Wallingford, Connecticut, it's no different than if Rick in Australia went to McDonald's, which I'm assuming they have there, and bought the same. It would be the same hamburger, would taste the same way, and probably would get close to the same service. Yeah. That's standard operating procedure. As real estate investors, we don't have that. We're a bunch, just like what I was talking about before, we're a bunch of individuals that are not organized. So we have a bunch of ideas, individual ideas out there running around. And the reason why you're stressed about learning real estate investment is because nobody's put together a standard operating procedure and said, here's how you do it. And made it like the basic rules. And then from there, you can go use your own ideas. And I plan to do that. I don't know when, but I plan on doing that. I think about it way too much these days. Too many choices or options on how to do it, which further confuses beginners or underproductive investors even more. So you go to the Connecticut REIA. You go to the real estate investment associations, and 1 month the guy's talking about tax liens. The next month the guy's talking about subject to deals. The next month you go, he's talking about equity or what's the word? Trusts. You know, what is the word I'm thinking of? Asset protection.
Oh, right.
Right. You know, so every month is somebody different. There's a different speaker, and you're trying to piece all these parts together and how you would use them, and you keep buying these courses, and you don't have enough time to study them. So you half bake the idea, and then 6 months later you run into it, and you got a half baked idea because it's because there's too many options on how to do it, which further confuses you as a beginner. And it makes you, or if you're an unproductive investor, it's because you're trying to do too many things. You're dispersed.
Yeah.
You need one standard operating procedure, and you need to follow it. You need one mentor, one system, and follow it through at least on a few deals until you decide to do another type of transaction. Right?
That makes a lot of sense.
High expense in training to learn the technical ways or skills. Staying small because you can't teach others the correct technology and get it applied. Like an acquisition manager. That's been my problem for 20 years. And then the last one, because there is not a common and workable operating standard procedure, you can't hammer out any incorrect technology.
Right. If you don't have it right, you don't even know it half the time.
So I'm going to read that one again because I'm going to tell you right now that's the punchline. And I promise you, you will not understand this when I read it. It took me years to understand this. And now the place that I'm in, I totally get it. And I'm not even saying that I'm smarter than you. I'm not saying it. Just someday you should write this down and you should read it, because when you get this, it will change your life. Because there is not a common and workable operating standard procedure, and I mean just in your business, the way you do things. I don't mean in general. I just mean because there is not a common and workable operating procedure, you can't hammer out incorrect technology. So in other words, if you decide you just want to do lease options, somebody comes along and tries to sell you a course on wholesaling, you need to knock, that's incorrect technology for you. You don't need that. Knock it out. Get rid of it. Don't try to absorb it. Right? All right, good. Yep. We need to end off. This list could be up one wall, across the ceiling, and down the other wall if I had more time. But I don't. So here's what we are going to do. Next podcast, which is podcast number 252, is part 2. I'm going to break out the roles of the strategist and that of the tactician, and why it is so important to have two distinct and very different people running these functions. It's not their training, it's their personalities, it's their passion in life. Right? I made a comment last week, which was significant if you were listening. When you decide because I believe when most employers hire people, they do it backwards. They hire the employee to do what they want them to do. What you should do is you should find an employee that loves what they do and wants to do it, and it aligns with what you want. So you hire a bookkeeper that loves to crunch the numbers and loves your flexibility with their hours and loves, you give them value, and they will always be a great employee. Instead of having an employee that you pay extra money to and they don't love their job, they don't love what they do, they're not passionate about it, they're just there for the money. Right? This works the same way with the strategist and this tactician. They have to love what they do. It has to be like their inner burning, it's their signal, it's their calling in life. It's a personality thing. It's not a trained thing. I mean, it's trained once they have the passion, but they have to have the passion first, okay? So it'll be the most revealing concept you have ever heard of. Even if you have a PhD in business from Yale or Harvard, you're going to learn something from this podcast. They don't teach this shit in school. It comes from pure experience and strict observation, which is why once you hear it, we'll know how simple it could be. So don't miss episode number 242. Please go give us a review, give us a testimonial, subscribe to our channel, and go to the link in the description and click on that link. And even if you don't want the interview with me, please give us a survey. There's questions in there that are very, very cool questions for you. They're not just for me. They're very cool questions for you to help you with your real estate business. So click on the link, fill out the survey, and if you want to do an interview with me one-on-one, just go ahead and put a time in the schedule, and we'll talk. Okay? Till next week, episode 252. Bring it on, Pete.
Nice one, Bill.
Over and out.
Thanks for tuning in to the hottest real estate topics on the planet with Bill and Pete. If you want to continue learning how to buy and sell real estate without money or credit, head over to flippinghouses.club for some cutting-edge real estate wealth tools. Or contact us at info@flippinghouses.club.